Today, I wanted to talk about how you can wear a sports chronograph in contexts that are other than casual, like in a smart casual context, for example, or even occasions that might otherwise demand a dress watch. Now, I specifically chose the Breitling Navitimer not only because it is one of those iconic sports chronographs, but also because it is actually quirkier and arguably cooler due to its busier dial compared to something like a Rolex Daytona, Omega Speedmaster, and say Breguet Type 20. And my inspiration behind this was specifically how the Team Lotus race car drivers, Jim Clark and Graham Hill, wore their Breitling Navitimers, specifically the reference 806s that they used in a variety of different settings, including, of course, while they were racing. The Navitimer was a model that Breitling introduced in the 50s, specifically in 1954, for in mass production. And it was initially intended as a watch for aviators, first and foremost. And it was meant to be sort of like a computer on the wrist, a smartwatch, so to speak, with its ability to perform complex calculations on the go, thanks to this beaded rotating bezel with which you can use the slide rule. Here you see Jim Clark in full racing suit wearing his reference 806, and you can already recognize that it is an evolution of that initial reference of the Navitimer, which itself grew out of the Chronomat model, the Breitling Chronomat. And this is what one calls, I guess, these days a reverse panda dial. And you can see how that, on the one hand, increases legibility, but I think, in my humble opinion, it also makes the watch simply look cooler and, in a way, more appealing to a wider variety of remarkable individuals other than aviators. And of course, Jim Clark and his teammate Graham Hill are great examples of that. But Miles Davis was also part of this group of people who wore the Breitling Navitimer, as well as the French singer Serge Gainsbourg. And here you see Graham Hill again in his racing gear, wearing the reference 806, the same reverse panda dial configuration again. And here he is in his car, Graham Hill. And there's Jim Clark again with his iconic Navitimer stepping out of his Lotus car. On the sidelines, still in full racing gear, Jim Clark is wearing his Navitimer. So far, so good. We have seen both of these motorsports legends wearing their chronographs basically as a tool watch, as a sports chronograph, uh, for more or less purpose, for the purpose that it was intended. Um, After all, it was designed as a chronograph for a variety of professionals, perhaps again, aviators first and foremost, but also racers, engineers, mathematicians as well, right? That's why the chronomat uh, was precisely called that, right? Chronograph for mathematicians in a way. And the Navitimer, of course, the navigation timer. And there they are again by the paddock, um, emerging from their racing gear, and you can easily recognize there on Jim Clark's wrist his Navitimer. It's a little better shot here. And here's I think one of the ultimate examples of what I was talking about, how that sporty watch, that sports watch, can actually be worn in other contexts. Right? Jim Clark was, after all, known and is still remembered for the finesse he brought onto the track. But as you can see from this photograph, he was also a real man's man and just as smooth and suave on the sidelines. And he had a very exquisite watch collection, of which the core was formed by three chronographs, Gaillet, Enicar, and finally this Breitling Navitimer reference 806. And as a man of style, Clark just shows how versatile a classic chronograph can be as a wristwatch, right? It is equally at home on your wrist when you're suited and booted, for example, in this sort of elegant ensemble of a patterned sports jacket and dark trousers, as it would be at home on your wrist when you're shirtless and mowing your lawn. And you can imagine this to be just one such case. And even if you might not be as cool as Jim Clark or have a racing suit like his, you too can perhaps feel like a piece of history wearing an iconic sports chronograph in this sort of dégagé, nonchalant way, in a mode of studied carelessness. And you can see Graham Hill here, again in full business suit, perhaps not as stylish as Jim Clark, but his Navitimer accompanies him and somehow helps him hold his own next to Nina Rindt, who was a style icon of her time. And this is a similar reference 806 to the ones that Graham Hill and Jim Clark were wearing. And I think in an important sense, the way that the Navitimer evolved from that all black or nearly all black dial layout to this reverse panda dial configuration somehow makes it even more charming. And it gives it this near perfect balance between utility and what I can only term coolness, right? It is just as easily worn here by a pensive Graham Hill as it can be worn off duty in absolutely casual, but also smart casual and even formal settings. If you have enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and help me reach my first major goal of 1,000 subscribers. And stay tuned for more content related to watches and style.